السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
How are you doing, Sheikh?
Alhamdulillah, how are you, Sheikh Nabil?
Alhamdulillah.
Barakallah.
I was thinking we'll just wait maybe a few minutes, inshallah, before we begin,
Yeah.
just to make sure, inshallah, as many people as possible join.
Inshallah, inshallah.
And then I'll definitely introduce you, make sure everybody's aware of what, inshallah, is going to go on in terms of the program. And
Sounds
I'll
good.
leave it to you.
Sounds good,
I'll
inshallah.
be here, inshallah. So if you have any questions or anything, just let me know.
Sounds good, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.
Yakum.
I think we should begin. No, I don't want to keep the people waiting for too much longer.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing,
Sorry.
inshallah.
Sorry.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. We welcome you all, inshallah, to this program today with our respected guest, speaker Imam Aarij. Those of you who have participated in National Zakat Foundation programs before are well aware of Imam Aarij and his past involvement and support with National Zakat Foundation. He has taught many courses, alhamdulillah, and Imam Aarij serves as a director of religious affairs at the London Muslim Mosque and the Muslim chaplain at in Western Canada. And mashallah, the Sheikh also holds a bachelor's of computer science from Waterloo and a bachelor's in Islamic theology and fiqh from Medina Munawwara, the famous Islamic university, and has also studied in Malaysia. He is currently a consultant for National Zakat Foundation, as well as an imam who supports in educating and spreading the awareness of zakat to the community across Canada. As you all know, National Zakat Foundation is a Canadian organization in which we collect and distribute all within Canada. And if any of you would like to donate, then you can donate at nzfcanada.com/donate. And inshallah, I will add this link into the chat. So in terms of the program, inshallah, Imam Aarij will be conducting a specific program revolving on the subject of zakat on business and corporations. And I will also be here, inshallah, just to moderate, but please, if you have any questions, then you can put them in the chat or in the Q&A box. And as we move forward with the program, inshallah, I will be able to ask them on your behalf. And inshallah, we'll get to everybody's questions. Without further ado, inshallah, we will begin the program. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh, for joining us, and we are very happy to have you.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh Nabil, for having me. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi wa la amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everybody. Thank you for joining. Alhamdulillah. Can you just, can someone, just want to make sure that people are able to type and I'm able to see their messages. Can you just type yes or one if you hear me okay? Can you type right? Okay, perfect. Thank you. Alhamdulillah. Just want to make sure. Jazakumullahu khairan for doing so. I'm going to share my screen right now, and inshallah on my screen you will be able to then see what I am presenting. Let me just rearrange this. Sometimes Microsoft. Okay, can I share my screen? Sheikh Nabil, if you can give me the access to do so, please.
Sure, 1 second, Sheikh. You are now the host, so inshallah you should be able to share.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you very much. All right. Let me share my screen right now. Okay. Alhamdulillah. طيب. So this is inshallah ta'ala the very inshallah a very specific or very specialized presentation, right, on the fiqh of zakat, specifically on how to give zakat on a business. This is a very you can call it almost like a niche presentation, because here the assumption is that you have a running business that has inventory and you are doing its accounting, you have payroll, you're running a business fully. You're not employed by a business, you are running a business. This could include, by the way, someone's side hustle. Like, people have, small projects and they run that as a separate, entity, as a corporation, and then they themselves have their own employment. Both of those things are okay. Either way, whether you are, doing this as a side hustle, whether your business, you run it fully, inshallah ta'ala, this will be beneficial for you. The presentation, is geared more towards people who are running it end to end, but I will point out a few things that are applicable to all. Inshallah. Firstly, we'll introduce the idea of business in Islam, tijara, as is mentioned in the Quran. And it is something that's encouraged in Islam. It is beneficial for a person's livelihood. It's productive for the economy. It has, the thing that a business gives, like there's a hadith about yadul ulya khayru min yadis sufla. The hand that's the upper hand is better than the lower hand. The giving hand is better than the receiving hand. As a business owner, you are often the giving hand, right? Not in every transaction. Sometimes you have to be the one that receives, but you are largely the one who is giving, and that leverage affords you power, independence, comes with barakah, with blessing, and it allows for a person to do a lot. So this is the the good parts of business in Islam. So the general ruling of business in Islam is mentioned in Surah Baqarah, ayah 275. In which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, الَّذِينَ يَأْكُلُونَ الرِّبَا لَا يَقُومُونَ إِلَّا كَمَا يَقُومُ الَّذِي يَتَخَبَّطُهُ الشَّيْطَانُ مِنَ الْمَسِّ. Those who consume interest will stand on the day of judgment like those driven to madness by Satan's touch. ذَلِكَ بِأَنَّهُمْ قَالُوا إِنَّمَا الْبَيْعُ مِثْلُ الرِّبَا. That is because they say trade is no different than interest. It's all the same. What's the big deal? وَأَحَلَّ اللَّهُ الْبَيْعَ وَحَرَّمَ الرِّبَا. But Allah has permitted trading and forbidden interest. This is important. The distinction is made in the Quran very clearly. Those are two separate transactions. Interest is on a debt-bearing security. Trade is for an asset, a commodity, something that's, a product or a service. That is what trading is. Interest is making money on money. Okay. فَمَنْ جَاءَهُ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّهِ فَانْتَهَى. Whoever refrains after having received warning from their Lord may keep their previous gains. فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ. Okay? Whatever happened before, you keep. And this is a beautiful part of our religion. If you are someone who was engaged in activities that were impermissible, and then Allah guided you, and now you want to rectify, whatever was your previous gains, you keep. فَلَهُ مَا سَلَفَ وَأَمْرُهُ إِلَى اللَّهِ. There are cases left to Allah. But then afterwards, you must, going forward, make the necessary changes. فَمَنْ عَادَ فَأُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ النَّارِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. As for those who persist, it is they who will be the residents of the fire. They will be in there forever. This is a very severe punishment that Allah mentions for the ones who engage in, in consuming riba. We ask Allah to protect us from that. The benefits of business, as we mentioned before, independence, as Sufyan al-Thawri states that if it were not for the wealth, the governments and sovereigns would take advantage of us like we were handkerchiefs. It's a very good point from Sufyan al-Thawri, rahimahullah. Having a business affords you independence, autonomy. It allows a person to feel a heightened sense of piety and barakah, as mentioned by Abdullah bin Mas'ud. So a single dirham from a business is more desired to me than 10 dirhams provided by the government. And this is an important part of our deen, that our deen and then our righteous predecessors prioritize, they prioritize earning their wealth and earning their livelihood, because that was an extension of their worship. That was an extension of Allah's blessings. And handouts and welfare for them was for the one who can't do it, right? The one who's just unable to, and they would prioritize themselves to go and earn their wealth. Of course, growth as well. As the Prophet said, as narrated by Jabir and Abdullah, allow the people to be, Allah will sustain them by way of each other, right? And the idea here is that as people exist, in a system that allows them to trade off each other, and then mutually wealth grows. So this is that. Some basic idea, and as we talk about the blessings of business and the blessings of wealth, we also should, we will be averse to not talk about some of the pitfalls, right? A person who is a businessman or businesswoman, if they acquire wealth in a manner that is impermissible, that there will be a lack of blessing in that, and the impermissible means are specified in the Sharia. It has to be void of interest. Interest and usury is riba, right? It should be void of extortion, that is taking advantage of somebody, that's dhulm, right? Or zur, gambling, it's called muqamara in Arabic, or in the Quran referenced as maisir. Okay, fraud, this is cheating. Man ghashana falaysa minna, right? Wala وَتُدْلُوا بِهَا إِلَى الْحُكَّامِ لِتَأْكُلُوا فَرِيقًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِ النَّاسِ بِالْإِثْمِ وَأَنْتُمْ تَعْلَمُونَ. The Quran references this as well, that don't create a system of fraud and corruption where the powerful take advantage of the powerless. Okay, theft, of course, وَلَا تَأْكُلُوا أَمْوَالَكُمْ بَيْنَكُمْ بِالْبَاطِلِ. The Quran says don't consume each other's wealth wrongfully, right? And indecency, of course, the idea being it is making products that are indecent or selling products that are indecent, of course, is to be avoided as part of what is haram. And of course, part of us being Muslims and part of us being faithful believers is we give our zakat every lunar year. Now, the important thing is, if you are an individual and you have no business, all you have is your employment, then you pay your zakat, alhamdulillah, that is the end of that, right? You calculate it whenever you calculate it, and then you give it. If you are a business, if you are an individual and you have a business, you have to calculate the two zakats. Now, you can do it all in one if you want to, but my recommendation would be, and this is something that I think could apply for everybody, is that you separate the two out for yourselves, just like you would separate your taxes. You would do your personal tax at a certain time and your business tax whenever whenever the fiscal year for your business is done. And you do this largely because the business assets, the business expenses are kept separately so that you don't pay a higher rate of tax on it personally. Largely, I would imagine that's the case. Would you all agree with that? Maybe in the chat, someone can say yes or no. Do you agree, disagree? But yes, you agree with that. Perfect. So same reasoning would apply for making the zakat calculation for it as an independent entity. Doesn't mean that your zakat or your business is now like a mukallaf person, a person who is liable in the eyes of Allah. No, you are liable for your business. You are still the one who Allah will ask you about. But you're doing this to allow you to make sure that each entity, your personal assets, you calculate zakat on it and give it its due, and then your business assets, you calculate zakat on it and give it correctly and appropriately. All of this is to be done, and that's what I recommend to anybody who has a business, whether it's a side hustle, whether it's a holding company, whether it's like a full business that they're running. Either way, I would encourage you to calculate its zakat as an entity and pay its zakat as an entity. Deductible debts. Now we're going to talk. We're going to get into the technicalities now, inshallah. Okay, and the technicalities here are going to be about. We're going to focus initially on debt because quite often debt is required to operate a business. Okay, and how do you calculate or factor debt into your calculation of zakat? Say you have the basic idea of zakat is it's wealth that you have had for a lunar year, then you pay zakat on it. Okay, but debt that you have borrowed, that is not necessarily money that is yours, so you can deduct it from your overall wealth. In other words, money that you have borrowed from somebody is not yours, so you don't pay zakat on it. Everything else that is yours, you pay zakat on. That's the basic premise. So here we're going to talk about deductible debts. Short-term liability, right? Debt and liabilities that are due within the next lunar year are deductible. Okay. Long-term liability. This is the idea that the short-term liability. The idea here being is that this is something you must pay within the next lunar year. Okay. So this is money that you have borrowed that you owe within the year. That money that you borrowed isn't yours, even if it's sitting in your bank account. So if you were to do your zakat calculation for your business and you look at your business bank account and you're like, this is the money I've had for the lunar year, minus the money that I borrowed as a short-term liability, everything else I pay zakat on. That's the idea there. Long-term liability, what if it's like a multi-year loan? Well, then you take 1 year's worth of payments and deduct it. Say you have a multi-year loan of $100,000 for your business. Okay. And then you pay $1,000 a month as repayment. That equals $12,000. It's as if for the short term, that 1 year, you have $12,000 that that is in your bank account. That's not yours. Everything else is yours. You pay zakat on that. Okay. Arrears are money that is owed, and those overdue expenses can be deducted. One can deduct whatever is currently due on their zakat anniversary. Okay, so this is an important aspect that when you are calculating your zakat, again, the principle in zakat is that if it is money that is someone else's, then you don't pay, right? But arrears is money that is owed and should have been paid earlier, right? You should have paid it before. So it's as if you are going to give this money to somebody. You've already earmarked it for somebody, you see? And that was, say my business's zakat date is today, okay? But I had used this service last week, okay? Now the bill came last week. I didn't pay it yet, but I have the money and the intent to pay it, but my zakat year is already over. So what do I do when I'm calculating my business zakat? I deduct the money from that arrears from my balance, because it's as if I've already paid that guy upfront or on the spot. You see, that's how you have to kind of view it, inshallah. And again, debts to be repaid within the next 12 months should be deducted if the ability to repay the debt is impacted by the zakat payment. And in other words, that if you feel that the debt is not overwhelming, overburdening, and you're able to manage without it, then it's safer to pay zakat without factoring them in. Now, there's other types of debts that are non-deductible. Mashallah, nice transition there, Brother Zaid. Non-deductible debts, future expenses and bills, right? Something not arrears that you should have paid before, but these are future expenses that are are coming. You cannot deduct them. For example, like you have, the electricity bill for the next month, but you don't have to worry about that. You don't deduct that from zakat. Next month's rent or utility bills, not payable at all in the next 12 months. A long-term debt that is not due to be repaid now on the next 12 months cannot be deducted right now. Same principle for it applies. Interest is a more interesting one, which is that the Quran and Sunnah are explicit about the dangers of interest and how it's impermissible. So the interest amount that you owe cannot be deducted from your zakat calculations, because aslan you should not be paying interest, you should not be owing interest, right? And if there's any money that you have accrued in interest, that you have gained from interest, then you're supposed to dispose of that. It's as if that money is not even there. That's the idea of interest. And the idea should be that you relinquish that unlawful wealth and you stop that, inshallah ta'ala, going forward. Okay. Zakatable assets. What are assets in a business? And again, we're talking about now like a brick and mortar business here. Okay. And I'll make some comments about like other businesses, like maybe like a side hustle, maybe like you're running maybe like a software company. You don't have like brick and mortar assets, but let's talk about all of them, inshallah, one by one. Cash, whatever business you have. If you don't have cash, you have no business. Right? If you don't have cash, buddy, what are you doing? But cash is treated as zakatable. Okay, it is payable on currency as it is productive wealth according to zakat principles. It is what's known in Arabic as ma'lum min ad-din bil-darura, right? It is axiomatically known. You have to pay zakat on cash. End of story. Okay, and gold and silver, that is the original form of the currency, and today the fiat currency is the de facto currency. So we pay zakat on cash. Your cash that you've held in your business that you keep for a year, that is what you pay zakat. Okay, that is one way to do it. Or if you have obviously like your business is, you have transactions, money coming in, money going out, you can just look at your balance on a zakat date. Your zakat date is Ramadan 1. Ramadan 1, you look at your bank balance of your business and you say, this is the cash I have and I'll pay zakat on this cash. Alhamdulillah. Okay, that is the zakat, 2.5% on the cash. Cash receivables is cash that you are expected to receive, correct? That's this is cash you're certain you're going to receive, right? Like there's no doubt about it in your mind. This is also eligible for zakat because it is as if you have it in your hand. Trade receivables also are zakat eligible. This is outstanding invoices for goods and stocks sold on credit are zakatable. Zakat is due on the trade stock and therefore due on the receivable. Just like on inventory, as we should talk about this. The inventory is an asset, what's called urud al-tijara in Arabic. Okay, urud al-tijara is what you sell to make money, right? So that is something that's an asset that you pay zakat on. Okay, unlike other assets like a car, your personal car, you don't pay zakat on it, it's excluded, right? If you had a horse, you won't pay zakat on it, it's excluded. Okay, but your urud al-tijara, the things you are buying and selling with, you would not, you will have to pay zakat on that. So trade receivables, whether you sold the stock on credit, like you already received money before and then now you're giving the customer their inventory, or is this inventory that's sitting in your warehouse, as an example, that is where you pay zakat on it. And again, the qualifying thing for zakat always is you've had it for a whole lunar year. If it's hard for you to track how much you've had for the lunar year, you look at the day Ramadan 1, right? Your zakat date. Here is what's my inventory, and we'll talk about how you value inventory. And this is the value of it. It's retail price. This is the money that I have had. This is my cash balance, and I will add that, subtract from it maybe some debt that I owe, and the rest, alhamdulillah, I pay zakat on. So this is the idea behind that. Walhamdulillah. Okay. If we proceed to go forward, by the way, if you have questions, you can leave them in the chat or you can put them in the QA, inshallah ta'ala. Let me know. What about software or apps? This is an interesting point because stock and inventory, you can value it. Like if I'm selling cars, I can value the car, and the car has a finite value, right? And I have a finite number of them, right? I have 100 cars in the lot. That's it. I don't have 101. But software, I can send unlimited amounts of software, subscriptions to maybe like a product that I'm selling, like an ebook. I can sell unlimited ebooks, right? So how do you value that? In my opinion, the way you value that is you look at your revenue. You look at the money that you made in revenue from the sales of your e-products, whether that's software as a service, whether that's any product that's digitally sold, whether it's an app with a subscription to. And we're not taking valuations here. We're not taking company valuations because that's subjective. We're just looking at cold hard cash. Revenue is facts. Profit is opinion, like they say, right? So you look at the revenue, and that is the cash. Of course, you deduct from it whatever else is to be deducted, as we'll come to that, and then you pay zakat on that. That, wallahu alam, is the best way to go about digital assets. Okay. Non-zakatable assets are as follows. Okay, they are service receivables. Okay, so say services are considered non-zakatable. Okay, services, the receivables due against services provided are also non-zakatable. This applies to outstanding fees, accrued income, wages. Okay, say you are a barber, you cut hair, that's your business, right? It's a service. That service, the cutting hair itself, has no value and has no zakat. Okay, it's not a urud al-tijara, it's not a asset that you're buying and selling. Okay, what you are valued on is your the amount of sales you made, the amount of hair you have cut. That's how much money you would get. So there's no zakat on the service of cutting the hair. Okay, the zakat is on the cash. Okay, prepaid expenses, the prepaid sum is no longer in one's ownership, therefore it's not zakatable, right? You've already paid it, khalas, is done, it's not even there. Okay, fixtures and fittings, property, plant, equipment, intangible fixed assets. This is the example here. These are what's called long-term assets. Long-term assets of a company are not zakat eligible. Okay, short-term assets are zakat eligible. What is that? Short-term assets is the example I gave in the zakat seminar of investment, was of a bakery, right? The short-term assets for a bakery would be the flour, the dough, the bread, and the long-term assets would be the oven, the bakery itself, the sign outside the bakery, right? All of these things, fixtures, fittings, property, plant, equipment, there is no zakat on it. Okay, whereas on the short-term assets, the assets that you are using to create your product, like the flour, for example, or the product if you created, the zakat is due on it. Of course, again, given the caveat that it remains with you for a year. Okay. Now we move on to non-zakatable assets, receivables, stuff that you will receive, right? You're owed that. Yes. All right. Let's look at what that is entailing. Non-zakatable receivables are payments that have not yet been received, such as wages not yet received, right? If you have not received wages, there's no zakat on them until you receive it, alhamdulillah. Okay, rental payments not yet received. Maybe you own property, that's part of your business, and mashallah, as you own property, like you have your tenant hasn't paid you rent, right? Well, you can't pay zakat on that cash because you haven't received it yet. Okay, and similarly, inheritance. I guess inheritance is not really part of business, but you get the idea. Maybe it is. Maybe you're inheriting business from someone, mashallah, or someone's making a bequest to you. Allahu Akbar. You are a lucky guy. Alhamdulillah. General ruling is do not add this money to your assets until you receive the funds. There is no backdated zakat on these funds. Of course, one of the important prerequisites for zakat is istiqrarul mal. What does that mean? Istiqrarul mal. It means the money is in your hands. It's accessible. It's with you. Okay. If you don't have access to the wealth, you don't pay zakat on it. It's very straightforward. Excuse me. Moving on to our next slide, which is other deductible business liabilities. Okay. Again, I don't want to make this into like a tax clinic here. Okay. That's not the point here. But these are things that you don't have to pay zakat on. That's what we're trying to say. Okay. Outstanding invoices and trade creditors deductible. Okay. Meaning you can say that this is money I don't have anymore. I owe it to somebody. I will remove it from my total cash balance. Utility bills for the previous month, right? Say my zakat is due today, all right? But I haven't paid the utility bill because it's due next week. I will take that amount and say, you know what? That money is already as if I paid it to the company already. It's just that my zakat date fell between my payment and my between my bidding cycle, right? So I will deduct that from my zakat calculations. Corporation tax or corporate tax, capital gains tax, okay? Any outstanding tax bill is deductible. This is a simple idea. Just like it's you don't have that money. You owe that money. You have to give that money to the government, right? It's like the invoice, it's like the utility bill, inshallah, same idea. Loan as well, same thing. With the loan in the Sharia, we don't factor interest. So what we do is that you take the principal portion of your loan, multiply by 12, and that's the amount of that loan that you have essentially don't have in your hand. You don't have istiqrarul of mal. You don't have the istiqrar of that wealth in your hands. Okay. How do you evaluate or value your merchandise for the purposes of zakat? Should it be at retail or should it be at wholesale? What do you think? If I was to buy a car from the auction, yes, should I value that car that's sitting in on my property for a year at the price that I bought it at the auction or at the price that I'm trying to sell it at? What do you think? Auction, number one, sell it at number two. Which one is it? One or two? Come on, people, tell me. What do you think? Okay, let me give you an easier example. Say I am importing iPhone cases, right? MashaAllah, I'm a miskeen. I'm selling these iPhone cases on Amazon for a loss. Anybody who has sold stuff on Amazon knows what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm importing iPhone cases from China. Okay, now I import them from China at a very low cost, $1 per iPhone case. Okay, and now my inventory is sitting in the Amazon warehouse, not selling, because like a miskeen, it's not, Amazon is suppressing me. So now here's the question. All right, I'm trying to sell the inventory for $10 for the iPhone case. Okay, but I bought it wholesale for $1. What figure do I use, $1 or $10 for evaluating my zakat? What do you think, people? $1 or $10, people? What do you think? There's no wrong answer. Just say something. Okay, here's the hint. The hint here is that all stock should be valued at retail price. So what do you think? Is it $1 or 10? Ahsan, thank you, Alpha Diallo. Very nice. It is exactly $10. It's at the retail price. Once the zakat anniversary, the day you owe zakat comes, on that day you look at the retail price of your stock, and that is how you value it. This is, of course, if you're selling physical stock, right? If you're selling software, again, software is not an actual, it's not a product that's sitting on your shelf. You can sell, because the product sitting on your shelf is limited, right? Software is unlimited. You can sell as many as possible, right? Unlimited amount, really. Okay. Dead merchandise. Okay, this is merchandise that is depreciated in value and is liquid. An example of this was maybe you are selling CD players. Okay, mashallah, that was your business, and then along came the iPhone and put you out of business. Or along came the iPod, excuse me, and put you out of business. That is a dead merchandise. You have hundreds of CD players in your inventory, and now they're worth next to nothing. So what do? Well, it should be valued at what's currently worth as dead merchandise. Is that CD player worth $1? Maybe it's worth $1. So you just value it as such, right? It has no actual resale value. And in reality, you might even value it as zero in certain situations. Undelivered merchandise. You ordered something from China and it's stuck in the supply chain. Allah musta'an. All the Suez Canal is again blocked. My iPhone cases are stuck on a ship. What do I do? Well, you're waiting for it to arrive, but you haven't been able to price it at its retail price because you don't have that money. You don't have that stock in your hand. In that case, it's only fair for you to value it at the purchase price. Whatever you purchased it at, that's the price you value your merchandise on. Let's add a couple of more things here. Work in progress and raw materials. Unfinished products and goods, raw materials, again, valued in their current state or at the cost price, whatever it costs you to source those materials. And damaged merchandise, of course, based on their condition, right? The idea is simple. Whatever, if you are valuing stuff that you can sell, value it at what you can sell it at. If you're valuing something that you can't sell, okay, then value it as something that is almost negligible. Or if you're valuing something that you purchased, but you don't have it yet, your purchase price is what you value your inventory at, inshallah. All right. Now, let's take some examples of valuation of inventory, just to make it not so dry. Okay, mashallah, look at all these bright, nice spices. Allahu Akbar. Right, this is paprika, this is turmeric, mashallah. I think this is chili. I don't know what this is. Salt, pepper, mashallah. Excellent. Very, very nice, bright pictures. Bay leaf. This is the staple of all YouTubers. YouTube chefs. All right. Let us consider how to value the stock of the following businesses. Okay. Restaurants, ingredients, and all food stuff are zakatable and are valued at what they're currently worth. Okay, this is important. They're valued at what they're currently worth. Now, of course, a restaurant is not going to have stuff sitting for a year. I mean, if they have stuff sitting for a year, you're probably not eating at that restaurant. They're gonna their inventory turns over very fast. Okay, because it's food. Okay, but certain food items can be long term. And even before that, maybe on the zakat date, the person looks at all the stuff they have, all the inventory they have, and they say, you know what? This is all the flour. This is all the stuff that I have to source my food, to bake my bread. And this is its value. Currently, what it would be if I was to try to purchase it. And this is how I will value it and then pay zakat on it. Maybe you are a person who has a jeweler, mashallah. You sell gold and silver. Allahu Akbar. Now, what happens in this situation? Anything that's marked for sale or held with the intent to resell is valued at their respective retail prices. Again, you price it by its retail price. Okay, just like the example of the iPhone case, just like the example of the car on the lot. Okay, here is another one. Grocery store. Again, grocery store, you're not going to have groceries sitting around for a year. Again, miskeen. If your groceries sits in your store for a year, you are a miskeen probably. If your grocery store is about to go out of business. But assume you're now paying zakat, just like you're taking the method of paying zakat on your anniversary date for everything, irrespective of how long it's been with you. Okay, then again, you look at the retail price of the fruits and the veggies, mashallah, and then you accordingly pay zakat. Let's turn our attention to business properties. Okay, business properties and the importance of intention. We're about to finish, so I'll take the questions by the Asif at that time if you're okay with that. Okay, business properties and importance of intention. Here again, the idea is its own for the purposes of investment or the purposes of making money by reselling. Okay, that's a business property or investment property. Residential property, there is no zakat on it whatsoever. Okay, properties purchased with the express intent to resell is valued at its current market value for zakat purposes. Meaning, your only intent to purchase that condo was to resell it. You have no intention of living in it or whatever, right? So if that property, if you have rented it out, you don't pay zakat on it. But if you are only purchasing it and, say like you have removed the person who's renting, you're like, off you go, and now you're trying to sell it. And that property is sitting on the market for a year waiting to be sold. Okay. Unimaginable in Toronto, but could happen. Okay. Then that property is a pure business asset because you're trying to sell it just like you're trying to sell your iPhone case. All right. Then in that case, it's valued at its current market value for zakat purposes. And then you don't have to pay zakat on it until you've sold it. Once you sell it, you take the money and then pay zakat on it afterwards, inshallah. Okay. Importance of intention. Clear intention to sell, zakatable. Clear intention for personal use, not zakatable. Okay. No clear intention. You don't know what you're doing. Allahu Akbar. No problem. No zakat until you make up your mind. Conditional intention, still no zakat. Right? You're like, if this happens, if it turns into valuable, if I, go to Pakistan and live there, it doesn't matter. Right? Property has no zakat on it by default, only when you have a clear intention to resell. Okay. That is, alhamdulillah, that. Let's look at some question and answers that you may have, inshallah ta'ala. I have inventory, but it's consignment. I don't own it, but I do still have to pay zakat on it because I profit 20% on the shoes. Brother Asif, what's it called? Are you here, Brother Asif? You're here, right? Would you like to just explain your question? I've given you the opportunity to talk, allowed to talk, if you want to, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum.
I think he's not speaking, but that's okay, right? It says it's consignment, yeah. Like it's like someone else has it, and then that was for another brother. Oh, okay, khalas, no problem. Well, inshallah, what the idea is that if if there's goods that are left in the possession of a third party to sell, right? But you're making someone purchased it, I resell it. Okay. So in that case, okay, I get it. So it's not your property. You don't own the property, right? You don't own the property, or sorry, excuse me, you don't own the inventory. You don't pay zakat on it. You only pay zakat on the money you have earned from it, the 20% profit, for example, that you're mentioning on shoes. Then that money is in your bank account, and afterwards, whenever the zakat anniversary comes, you pay zakat on it, whatever is in your bank account. Does that answer your question, Brother Asif? Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khair. Then we have, alhamdulillah. Thank you for that question. That was an excellent question. Jazakallah for the webinar. It's super helpful. Barakallahu feekum for attending. I had a question regarding dead stock fabric, i.e. leftover fabric from clothing designs that is no longer being used. Is zakat owed on this? So again, this is dead stock fabric. Is anonymous attendee. I'm not sure if you're still here. Can you reuse that to make something, or is it completely garbage? Let's take both situations. If it's completely useless, right, you can't do anything with this fabric, it has to be tossed in the garbage, it has no value, no zakat, right? Because it has no value. Okay. Or if it can be reused to create other fabric, like I've never worked in fabric or whatnot, right? But assume it's like, pieces of fabric that can be, utilized for something else, right? Then it is, then you take whatever you think it's its value as a raw material, whatever is your, valuation according to what's fair in the market, and then you on that pay zakat. Either way, those are the two options, right? Like it's either completely useless or it has some value. It's completely useless, no zakat. If it has some value, guesstimate to the best of your ability its value, and then pay zakat on that on the zakat anniversary. Wallahu a'lam. We have Brother Shayan saying, could you confirm treatment of the following? Investment stocks, incorporation, and investments in RSP accounts. Should we consider the tax impact of the RSP account? So I talked about this in the investments webinar, but I'll repeat this point, which is that RSP accounts, whatever is held in your RSP accounts, you have self-directed RSP. Self-directed RSPs, you have access to it minus the withholding tax. So you subtract the withholding tax, and then whatever else you have access to, you pay zakat on it. Okay, that's number one. Group RSPs, you don't have access to generally unless you have left your work and whatnot. Group RSPs, you don't pay zakat on it until you get access to it. So that's when it comes to investments in RSP accounts. When it comes to investments in corporation, so now a corporation account is now going to be, that's going to be like you're going to have capital gains tax on that. It's not like a registered account like RSP or TFSA, right? So the whatever, say your corporation is just a holding company, you're holding money in it and you're buying stocks in it to keep it growing, so to say. So what you do is you look at how much of this money in your corporation, right, that's invested in stocks, how much of it would be liquid. Like if you were to liquidate it, how much would you get in the corporation, not in your hand as a person? Because if you were to take it out from the corporation in your hand, you have to pay a bunch more taxes. But just in the corporation, if you liquidate everything, what's left in the corporation's hands, right? Then that's the amount that you pay zakat. All right. And then, as I said before, if you have a corporation, it's best to separate the corporation's zakat from your own zakat for this particular case precisely. Because if you were to take it out of the corporation, there's an additional tax that you pay on a personal tax level, right? So that's why we say, no, your intent is not to take it out. Your intent is to keep it in the corporation, shelter it from the tax for as long as you can. So pay zakat on it as if the corporation is an entity by itself. I hope that makes sense, inshallah. We have Brother Asif saying, question, this time I buy a shoe. Oh, actually, sorry, Brother Asif, there was a there's also a question from Sajis Faizi. Forgive me for mispronouncing your name. I have a question. Please explain zakat about gold and cash money, dear teacher. Okay, so money is zakatable. You pay zakat of money, right? Gold is, if gold is bought as an investment, you pay zakat on gold that is bought as an investment. Gold that is jewelry that you wear, like a woman particularly would wear, because gold men can't wear, right? Then that is a difference of opinion between scholars. The Hanafi school says you have to pay zakat on that, just like the regular gold. The others say no zakat on it because the jewelry is ma yulbas adatan. It's worn, regularly. It doesn't have to be daily. It's just like here and there, a person wears it. That is like clothes, so there's no zakat on it. So it depends on which opinion you take. But if it's investment gold you're buying for the sake of, you're worried about inflation, worried about a run on the banks, you're worried about, I don't know, the world order collapsing, you pay zakat on that, inshallah. All right. We have this time I buy a shoe for 180. It's worth $500. Allahu Akbar, brother. What is this? AJ's or something, right? AJ ones. I'm selling it for 500. Do I pay zakat on the 180 or 500? I believe 500 based on the retail example earlier, but I would like to confirm. Correct. You are absolutely correct in assuming it is on the retail price. If its stock price has increased in value, you pay zakat on that price, the retail price, inshallah. Because with shoes, I'm deciding the selling price, I pay zakat on what I'm valuing. Yes, as you value it, as you price it, you pay zakat on it accordingly. It was the AJ one. Allahu Akbar. I knew it. Alhamdulillah. Excellent. Barakallahu feekum. Tayyib, inshallah. Any other questions we have from the attendees?
If there are no other questions, then that brings us to the end of our program. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh Aarij, for joining us today and conducting this clear, transparent program. Inshallah, we'll be having more programs with you. We really appreciate your time. As I mentioned, that if anybody is looking to donate, then they can go to www.nzfcanada.com/donate. And I have also put that in the chat. And if you have any other questions, you can also email Imam Aarij, or you can also go to NZF, as we are having a service this year where we are providing consultations to anybody who has inquiries about their zakat and any specific questions. So Jazakallah khairan, and inshallah we'll see you again soon, Sheikh.
Barakallahu fikum. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you all for the questions. As I said, like, if you want to, follow me on Twitter, you can ask me questions there too. I actually like to interact on it more than even email. So, alhamdulillah.
Okay, take care. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum.